So I'm going to talk about transplanting and propagating hydrangeas. So can you transplant them? The answer is yes. They have an active growth period between March and September. So during that time frame is not the ideal time to transplant, to dig up an entire bush and to move it to a new location. Usually you want to do that transplanting either in very early spring or very late in the fall when the plant is not actively growing. That is going to be the best time to transplant that particular bush for you so that you don't do damage. Because when you do a transplant, the plant becomes under stress and it could take longer for that plant to adapt and to adjust and to acclimate to that new location. So you just want to be careful when it comes to transplanting. But let's talk about propagating, because propagating is something that's probably a lot easier to do if your bush is a larger bush. So you can do what is called layering. Layering is where you kind of dig a little bit of a trench next to the bush. And then one of the larger branches that you can actually bend down without breaking, you can bend that down to the trench line that you've created. You want to remove about a 1-inch ring around that branch, all the way around it, just cutting into it slightly without hurting too much of that, because you're making a layer there where the plant will actually, once it's buried under that trench with about 6 to 12 inches of the top of that branch sticking up out of that trench, then it will develop new roots where that small ring is that goes around. And once it's rooted really well, you can go ahead and totally cut it off from the mother bush. And then you can take that smaller one that's rooted and go ahead and transplant that to a new location. So a lot of our long stemmed bushes that are easy to bend without breaking, we can do this layering and create new plants of our own from those that are already existing. So you don't always have to go buy a new bush or a new plant. We can do layering. You can also do division with the hydrangeas. And this is really, again, before they actually start to leaf out, when they're still in dormancy in very early spring. And you can actually take a shovel and actually divide the clump that is there. I know I've done that with some ornamental grasses that my mom had at her house that I simply had to have at my house. And when the plant is dormant is when you would actually do this and then transplant that to your new location. Softwood cuttings is something that can actually be done with the hydrangeas. You can actually do those during the summer time frame. You want to select the terminal cuttings from non-flowering shoots. So not every new shoot is going to have a flower on it. If it doesn't have a flower, that's what you want to use. The terminal cutting is going to be at the tip, the terminal, the end. So you want to go ahead from the end of that non-blooming branch, go down about 3 to 5 inches. And if you want, you might go just a little bit longer, 4, 5, 6 inches in length, and go ahead and cut that off. You want to make sure that you leave at least 3 leaves on that stem. When you make the cut, you want to cut it at the node. A node is where the leaves actually attach to the branch. So cut it above a node and cut it on a slight angle. The reason for the angle is that you're having more surface area at that cut where there could be more roots that could be growing. Whereas if you cut it straight across, there's less area surface there for roots to grow. You want to go ahead and take that end cut and stick it into a rooting hormone and then place it in some moist growing media. Some people will actually take those 3 leaves that are left and cut half of those leaves off of each of those 3 leaves. And that helps to reduce the water loss, the dehydration, the wilting, because there is no actual roots at that particular point in time. You want to keep it in a shaded area while it's rooting. You can do this in the ground or you can do it in a pot. If it's in a pot, make sure that it stays moist, not wet, but keep it moist because we want to make sure that that cutting is actually going to grab hold and develop some of those roots. And so that's what you can do if you're looking at trying to move a hydrangea or to actually transplant or to propagate hydrangeas that are in your yard that you would like to spread to other locations and add more color to your landscape.